does put a little countdown on the screen. So that's my... Hello. Welcome to Financial Insider Weekly. I am your host, Michael Gray, CPA. My guest today is Kathleen Wright. And Kathleen, her background is actually she's an attorney.
I am an attorney.
And she's also now a gift planning officer with the American Red Cross, and she's involved with long-term fundraising for the Silicon Valley chapter. And she's been with the American Red Cross since December 2000. Gosh, only yesterday.
Only yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
It's my 10-year anniversary last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So her previous career was as a lawyer, practicing estate planning for 19 years. Must have been somebody else. Well, anyway.
You are so kind. Thank you, Mike. Can I come back next week?
Anyway, related to this, today we are going to be talking about financial preparedness for disaster recovery. And the American Red Cross has a complimentary handbook that's available related to this. It's called Disaster Recovery, A Guide to Financial Issues.
There it is.
And so Kathleen has a copy with her. And this was a joint effort of the American Red Cross, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which is nicknamed AICPA, and the National Endowment for Financial Education.
Right.
And the Red Cross also has complimentary brochures available. One is called 3 Actions You Should Take to Be Prepared for Emergencies. And another one is called Your Family Disaster Supplies Kit. So, Kathleen, thank you for being my guest today.
Well, thank you, Michael. It's
Yeah.
a pleasure to be here.
Oh, great. Yes, now, just to let people know about when we're recording this, it is December 14th. And so you'll be seeing this, most of our viewers, probably in about a month. So just be aware of that, because it frames a little bit of the time and some of the things that we're going to be talking about. So here we are. Again, we're in San Jose, California.
We are.
And California, we're just known for being the location for a lot of interesting activity. Of course, each state seems to have its own brand of natural disasters and so forth. Kathleen, why don't we talk about, as Californians, why should we be particularly concerned about disaster recovery and how it relates to our finances? And related to this, we do have a slide that says natural disasters in California.
Well, the most prevalent disasters in California are, of course, our famous earthquakes. And why a lot of people don't like to live in California, they say that they would prefer to live in a land where there's hurricanes every year, or tornadoes, or flooding. And of course, our big earthquakes only come every 30 or 40, 50 years. But the earthquakes, when they do come, the large ones, are devastating. And we just celebrated, or I don't actually, celebrated is probably not the correct word, but we passed the 20th anniversary of Loma Prieta earthquake just last year. October of 2009 was the 20th anniversary, and many of us who were here then certainly still remember it. So that's one area that Californians always need to be prepared about, is earthquakes. The second is wildfires. We have a lot of forest land. We have a very pretty dry climate most of the time, although as we sit here today, we've had a nice wet December.
Yes.
And especially the folks in the Sierra are very happy with the snowfall, and that bodes well for fire season, at least so far this year. But we do have a substantial amount of issue with wildfire here in California. So those are the two primary disasters that Californians need to be aware of and prepared in terms of not only their personal selves but also their financial affairs.
Okay, Thank you for that. Okay. So, our latest disaster wasn't a natural disaster in the San Francisco Bay Area, and that was the San Bruno fire, which was a month or so ago. So, how did the Red Cross help victims of the San Bruno gas line explosions?
Well,
And there, by the way, there is also a slide for this on the San Bruno gas line explosion. Okay.
The San Bruno explosion took place in September of 2010, and this is not one of our normal disasters, if any disaster can be considered normal. It was an explosion of a very large gas main in a residential neighborhood, which is highly unusual. And it underlines the fact that Californians and residents anywhere really need to be prepared for whatever might happen. These folks in the Crestmore neighborhood in San Bruno were sitting down to dinner or maybe watching the first Monday night football game at 5 p.m. approximately when the entire street blew up and destroyed over 40 homes. There were 8 fatalities and numerous injuries. So it was isolated to that particular area, but again, points to the fact that we always need to be prepared to have to recover from something that might happen to us, whether it's in a small area or it's throughout the Bay Area.
Yeah, you just never know, and I mean, it was just sort of a sleeper. These people had no clue that that there was a pipeline that represented a threat like that in their neighborhood, and so sort of a sobering experience.
Very scary event, and what's interesting about the event was that most people thought it was a plane crash because that particular neighborhood is in one of the alternate flyways for San Francisco International Airport. And so immediately that's where even a lot of the emergency responders went, was they thought, oh, it's a plane crash because it had that same type of loud boom and a ball of flames, and they thought that a plane had come down. So that was the first thing that came to mind for most of those people. The Red Cross served over 1,200 people in trying to get some emergency services after the event. We had over 400 volunteers, both primarily from the San Francisco Bay Area chapter, but our local chapter here in Silicon Valley sent up over 100 volunteers during the 5 weeks in which the service area was open. And so we were able to work with all of these 1,200 individuals in order not only to meet their immediate needs, which was clothing, housing, and food and whatever medications they had lost, but also to help them try to put together their lives and replace the kinds of things that we're going to be talking about a little later that are necessary in order to get your life back to functioning.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's move on, I guess. What can we do to prepare for a disaster? And related to this, we have a slide that says, be prepared at work.
Well, one of the things, even though the San Bruno disaster was in a residential neighborhood, one of the things that many people don't think about is being prepared for in their workplace. And those of us who do work outside the home are typically at our jobs anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day, especially if you include commute time.
Right.
So the likelihood of a disaster happening while you are at work is probably fairly great. And it's very important not only for the employers to be prepared and to make sure their employees have the appropriate kinds of supplies that they need, but also to have a plan for what happens if the disaster occurs during work hours. For those of us who have employees, most of those people are going to be very concerned about their family members and how do they reach them. And that is one area where the Red Cross can actually step in and help local businesses develop a plan for that. And we call it the work program, the Work Emergency Response program, and we have that available through our local chapter here in San Jose.
Okay, so employers basically can call the American Red Cross and ask representatives to come down and give a little training program on preparedness and so forth. And hopefully somebody will do something about it after the thing's over.
Well, truly, yes. You can call the local office, which it's going to be on the final slide, but the phone number is 408-577-1000 and ask about our work emergency preparedness program. And it's tailored to the size of the business, the needs of the business. We will come out and do an assessment of the workplace itself. We will look at not only safety issues and things that might affect your employees and your customers, but also we will help you develop the emergency response plan, and then we will help you review that plan on a regular basis. And it includes such things such as what do you do with all the financial records and other documents you need to keep your business going.
Yeah, okay. Well, now we've got into the question of records then. So what should we assemble in the process for financial preparedness in a disaster? And we do have a slide here that says part of the plan.
Well, part of the plan is making sure that you have copies of all your important documents. We encourage people, of course, like any of your technicians, to back up your computer programs and make sure you have all of your data backed up on a regular basis. You and I were talking before we went on the air here about what you do, and I think you said when you back it up, you take it home every evening.
Well, it's once a week.
Once a week,
So we do a full backup of our system once a week, and I take the backup home with me so that I've got a remote location backup in case something happens, like the building burns or something like that.
Well.
And so that I can pick up the pieces.
Well, and that's a primary example. Yeah. It's very important to have the backed up records off-site, because if you do have an event such as a building fire, you are going to need to replace those documents and reconstruct them from something that wasn't inside the building at the time. So that's a very good way to do that. Another important thing to have for your business is what's called business interruption insurance, and most of those insurance policies will also require you to tell the insurance carrier exactly what it is that you're doing to back up your financial and other customer and data records, and that's part of qualifying for being able to have this kind of a policy. In addition to being prepared in your financial area for your business, it's very important to make sure you're prepared your employees to have the appropriate stuff that they need. A small preparedness kit, which would have some kind of very minimal first aid supplies. You should have, just like we tell people for their home supply kits, they should have at least 72 hours worth of supplies. That is what our emergency operations centers here at the state level and the federal level are suggesting. We used to suggest 48 hours, but we have learned from a number of the recent large-scale disasters that it can be at least 3 days before folks can get, the emergency responders can get to people who do not have serious injuries, or and you can also be isolated. Here in our area, we have a number of places where there are lots of back roads, and they may be cut off with either